Good morning, everybody. It's Friday. Yes, you made it to the end of the week once more. Congratulations. We've got a lot to do today, and I've got lots of surprises for you today. We've got Ben coming on the show, which I know a lot of people love when Ben comes on. He's on at 6:30 this morning. Ben has got a whole new routine he wants to talk to us about too. He's been doing this really, I think, pretty interesting project, which he'll tell us about just now. And then Gord Laws joins us from 7 a.m. this morning. So we got Ben, we got Gord, and Gord is actually going overseas. So we're going to find out how all of that is going. And he may not be on the show for a while because he's going overseas. So this is your chance to catch up with him and ask him all the questions and find out what's going on with Gord Laws. Also, a little bit later, we're going to be joined by two dudes, the Saxby Twins, in just a few minutes, actually. These guys are in music, and they're really young. I mean, they're a neo dance and pop act. So we'll find out what their music's all about. But also, like, there's always this thing with twins that I think people are fascinated by. So we'll talk to them a little bit. And they've been working with people like Daniel Barron and so on. So it could be quite cool to hear their story. George Mienie joins us later on, and we've got a couple of emails and some news and all sorts of other stuff. So it's a busy Friday morning. I hope you're having an awesome day today, or that your day's at least started off pretty well. Let us know what's going on. I was in Cape Town yesterday, flew back last night. Not much to tell, really. There's a weird thing that happened, though. So on the way down on Wednesday, and by the way, Cape Townians must stop saying, I'm flying down to you when they come to Gauteng. That's up. I mean, it's up on the map, and it's up on altitude. So it's up to Joburg, and it's down to Cape Town, and it's up to Joburg, and it's down to Durban. Sorry, there's no way you could put it otherwise. So there was this woman who sat next to me on the way down on Wednesday to Cape Town, and then the same woman ended up sitting in this. We were in different seats because we were in row 9 on the way down and row 6 on the way up. She ended up sitting next to me again on the way back. I said to her, this is very weird. I mean, what are the chances, right? I understand that how many people are on a plane? I don't even know. Is it 200? Is it 200 people? Maybe more than that, maybe less. But on the same plane, she's sitting next to me there and on the way back. What manner of probability delivers that sort of opportunity to anyone to end up in exactly the same situation? It felt like deja vu. It was weird. So that was pretty strange. And I just wonder if there's someone who does probability calculations, an actuary or something. Tell me what you think that comes from and what the chances of that. So maybe she's the woman I was meant to marry, but I missed the opportunity. I didn't ask her for a number or anything. So what can you do? It's another one that's gone. Was she hot and rich, says Claire. That's all that matters. Oh, I love the way you think. Claire, you know what? Claire, you and I get married. How about that? But only if you're hot and rich, obviously. But I like the way you think. She was quite attractive. Yeah. She was wearing all black, which was exciting. She had long blonde hair. She was attractive. And one weird thing. It's always something weird, right? There's always a thing. It's like Seinfeld with the big hands. The thing with this woman, on both the trip down to Cape Town and the trip back, she went to the loo in between, but she took a really long time. Now, I don't know what that's about. Like, why would you want to spend any extended amount of time in the bugs of an airplane? I mean, if anybody knows, I'd love to know what you do in there. I mean, what are you going to do? If I think about the toilet on an airplane, it's so small. It is so cramped. It is so uncomfortable. You don't want to sit down. People pee all over the place. It smells bad. It's very weird. And I'm trying to think about, she was in there for a substantial amount of time. I'm talking like 15 minutes. And remember, after about 5 minutes, everybody else starts lining up at the loo, and there's usually only one or two on a plane. And she had taken up the one for maybe she's doing. Marco says she's doing powder. Vyasan says cocaine. See, you guys are thinking very creatively here. I didn't think about that. That could be it. Maybe she's a cokehead. Congo Chris says she was waiting for me to come and knock on the door for the Mile High Club. Missed opportunity. I don't know how that ever happens. I mean, unless you're doing an overnight flight, and it's overseas, and you've got maybe a bigger plane, and the cabin crew are not hanging around, because the cabin crew are right there at the door to the loo the whole time. So I don't know how anyone gets the Mile High Club thing going. That is something I've never figured out. Anyway, I mean, I do think these are the things that go through my head when I'm on a long plane. So a long plane flight. So I don't know what you're thinking, but this is me. I'm like, this woman sitting next to me again. She spends a long time in the toilet. I was confused. Let's get our day going. I used to take, I dated a girl, says Vyasan, who took an extremely long time. She was a heroin addict. Jesus. Heroin addict. Are those just, like if you kick under a bush, do heroin addicts fall out? I don't understand that. I thought heroin addiction was a very rare and unfortunate thing, and something that happened to a tiny minority of people. But what can we do? Nico says maybe she dropped a log and wanted to wait till the air cleared. Well, this is the stuff I am thinking. I didn't think of drugs, but that is something I've been thinking about. That's hilarious. She was part of the new Mile High Club, in which they just masturbate. Well, it is May, which someone sent me a poster. It's apparently May is masturbation month. So everybody, good luck for the month of May. For masturbation month. This is hugely important. Leanne is not joining us today. She's feeling a bit sick, which is not the end of the world. We will manage without her. And as I said, we've got Ben, we've got Gord, we've got lots of people joining us today. So we'll have some new guests coming on, people you haven't met yet before, the Saxby Twins, in just a short while. Stick around for that. A couple of other things that I thought were worthy of discussion this morning. My dog Carl died last month, and I was thinking about getting a new dog. And I had a dream last night about puppies, which is very unusual. This weird dream that I suddenly adopted like 3 or 4 puppies from like some shelter, and I just know in the dream it was a bad idea, and in reality it would be a bad idea, because anything more than one dog is too much work. And I've seen this happen. You get these real do-gooders, and they adopt like 3 or 4 animals, and then they end up with major problems because the animals fight, or the animals tear up their house, or they can discipline one at a time. It's a disaster. And the other thing is, I got thinking about a friend of mine who she lost a pet just a while ago. Now, far be it for me to tell other people how to feel about this. And obviously I was pretty sad, and it took me a little while to get over Carl not being around anymore. And anyone who's ever lost a pet, you know what that's like. But this woman has been posting about losing this dog. And she's a friend of mine, so I don't want to mention names, or she's going to know that I'm talking about her on the show, and sometimes people do. She has been posting probably every day for the last 2 weeks about this dog who died. And she's built a little shrine at home. And it seems to me she's really struggling. But I think there's a line where you kind of, if you go over that line, it's a bit weird, suddenly you're almost in mourning for an extended period, like a month, before you can get over it. I don't know that that's completely healthy. I think it's good to grieve about anything in your life that you lose, especially a person or an animal that you really love. There has to be a moment of closure and of grief and all that stuff. But if you are spending a month mourning the death of this animal, I would venture to say that there's some proper trauma going on, and you maybe need to see someone about that. Doesn't sound entirely sensible to me. Just a couple of sort of top line thoughts that I've been sitting on planes thinking about over the last few weeks. Anyway, the weekend is here one more time, and it's a normal weekend, and next week is back to a normal 5-day week. So if you're not in a hurry, I'm sorry, you've got to get back into it. There is no two ways about this. We're going straight back into a 5-day week next week. Means everybody has to gird their loins. Sorry about that. What the hell that is. Gird their loins, pick up their game, and start going back to work and doing things normally. Also, I see government they meant to have told us yesterday that we don't have to wear masks anymore. You know, it's kind of, I thought it was done. I thought we were finished with this pandemic now. I thought it was over. And I'm not going to talk about this for long because I know a lot of people are sick of it. But then I get this message from a friend of mine who's got kids at school. And she says to me, "Oh, the government, they've just sent this thing out." And I got to read just the opening line of this. It's from Department of Health. All right. So this is a Department of Health notification. Here's what it says. Health Department clarifies the wearing of face by children at school. It's a proper, you heard that right. They didn't say the word face masks. They said Health Department clarifies the wearing of face by children at school. These fucking morons. They can't even get that right. Anyway, they've been receiving a lot of feedback from people. They'd like to encourage South Africans to share their feedback, blah, blah, blah. But then they go, we'd like to bring to the attention of the public that there was an error in the media statement about mask wearing by children at school. Now, I never understood why we made children wear masks at school anyway. They are not especially susceptible to this. I don't think we've had a single case in South Africa, and I stand to be corrected. But if we have had a single case, it is maybe one of single-digit cases in this country of kids who've died of COVID. And therefore, for these children to still be wearing masks is not only completely counterintuitive, illogical, and stupid, but it's also just an exercise of control. I feel very sorry for this friend of mine who's a mum, and for all other mums and dads who are like frustrated beyond belief at just the general incompetence of the administration in this country in trying to handle this thing, but also their reluctance to just do the right, sensible thing. You know, unless we take them to court, which again, credit, whether you like them or not, to Nick Hudson and to all the people at various organizations that have actually gone, medical doctors included, and forced this government to court and forced them, their noses to the grindstone, and made them realize the error of their ways by a court order. It's the only way you can get them to do anything. So if you're a parent and you're frustrated about this, I'm really sorry. Apparently, you still got to wear masks. Even kids still do. They are effective non-pharmaceutical invention. They say this in a release. How? Tell me how a cloth face mask, which is what most kids are wearing, how is that going to prevent anything from? We've already said and seen in countless and innumerable places and times that these are just cosmetic. Does nothing. And yet they persist with this nonsense. You know, it's like someone who discovers a way to not make a light bulb work, and then they keep using that way to keep making light bulbs that don't work when people want light bulbs that work. It boggles the mind. Anyway, so apparently we still have to wear face masks, but I would encourage, as I said yesterday on the show, and I think Canton agreed with me on the Burning Platform, that it is time for civil disobedience. So if you're also sick of this stupidity, only put on a face mask if someone in authority asks you to and you're feeling like you want to comply. Otherwise, just do not do it. You don't have to do it anymore. Don't listen to any of these morons. It's complete nonsense. It's about time security guards went back to actually doing security guard jobs. It's about time that people in planes started being air hostesses again, serving you drinks and stuff. It's time everybody stopped saying, "Where's your face mask?" and get on with their actual job. And if they don't have an actual job, it's time for them to go back into the unemployment queue. Sorry, that's how it's going to work. Right, let us turn our attention to a new musical act in South Africa. I'm always keen to meet people who are doing something new and who are doing something new in a time, in an industry where it's not very easy to do this stuff. We've got a pop act called the Saxby Twins who are going to come on and join us in a second. They have been online like everybody else for 2 years, and they've been doing low-key releases, and they've got a new song which we'll talk to them about in a moment. They were spotted online by the A&R team at Universal Music as a standout talent a little while ago in 2020. And of course, they started off on TikTok, which is the place you get noticed now. It used to be that you would have to do that on YouTube and on Twitter and on Instagram, but now TikTok is the place where they discover new talent. So let us meet 21-year-old Kyle and Wade Saxby. They're here on the line. Hey guys, how are you doing?
Hey Gareth, it's really awesome to be here. Looking so forward to this interview.
Yeah, hey Gareth, it's an honor to be here.
So which one's Kyle and which one's Wade?
So Kyle is in the white shirt and Wade is in, I think you can call it a navy shirt.
Blue shirt.
You really are twins, guys. This is fantastic. You know, I met two people the other day. They told me that they were twins and they were nothing alike. Not for external. What do they call them?
We're very fortunate in that way. How we're very similar looking.
Now, what happens if one of you gets fat? I mean, you can't,
It's a funny story. A few years ago, my face actually used to be quite a lot wider than my brother's, and he used to be quite slimmer, and that would be the defining way that people would be able to tell the difference between the two of us. And I thought to myself, I need to change this. Like, I can't keep living like this. And then,
did you stop eating for a few days or something like that?
To be honest, I don't actually know what I did. I just naturally slimmed out, and the rest is history.
So listen, guys, I mean, there's something cool, and I mean, a lot of people would say it's gimmicky, but I think it's awesome that you look similar, that you guys are twins. There is this weird bond that twins have, whether people like it or not. It is true, and I'm sure you have it as well. The fact that you're both musically talented just proves the point as well. And a lot of this is genetic, right? What are the major differences between you two? You mentioned the physical difference of your face looking different, and then you kind of, you look very similar. But what other differences are there between you two, especially when it comes to music?
So I would say that's actually, it's quite a tough question for us to answer, because I mean, if we look at school and stuff, we're very similar in most aspects, whether it was with regards to sports. I think even our matric averages in general, it was like a percentage difference when it came to mark-wise. So
really,
wow. One thing I think that a lot of people try and distinguish with us apart is with our laugh, I'd say. Otherwise, it's quite hard to tell. I'd say at the end of the day, our hair used to go different ways in school. And then a lot of people started noticing that and picking up on that trend. And we turned to each other and we're like, you know what, let's just change it up and make it hard for people. So
have you ever impersonated each other because one of you was in trouble and it was a way to get out of it?
We haven't done that before, but well, I mean, I guess we have a few times to try and confuse our friends, and every now and then I suppose with a girl. But we actually met each other in the bathroom one time at school. Randomly, we both just went to the toilet at the same time, and we're like, hey, let's switch classes. And I think it was like in grade 9 where we had to take music and art, and my brother was in art and I was in music, and we switched, and the teachers had absolutely no idea except our close friends. So we spent about a good 30 minutes in each other's classes, just sitting at the back and having a bit of fun, messing around with the teachers.
If I had a twin, I'd be doing that all the time. Plus, I'd make my twin do all the work, and I'd just chill and be lazy.
Yeah, 100%. Kyle, I'm the older one, and Wade does everything for me.
All right, so listen, let's talk about your music for a second. You've just released this this new song, I think I'm Falling for You, right? And people can get it where online? Is it available on all the different services, again, Apple Music and so on?
Yeah, so everyone can find the song on Apple Music, Spotify, or all music streaming platforms. And then, we like keeping them up to date on our social medias also with regards to all of that. But all of our music is available on all music streaming platforms, even YouTube.
So, all right, I want to talk a little bit about how this all started, but the one comparison people are already coming up with in the comments is that you guys remind them a little bit of Lochinville. I mean, have you ever met those guys?
Yeah, we have. We always get compared to them all the time.
Yeah.
And I mean, we really, really have been big fans of Lochinville growing up, and especially looking at what they've done as twins, it obviously can be inspiration towards us and our music careers. But at the end of the day, we are very different to them, we feel. Especially what we produce in terms of music, and
And you've worked with Daniel Barron, right?
Yeah, 100%. We worked with him. We actually did quite a few songs with him prior to getting signed to Universal. And working with him was really an awesome experience, and gaining his experience that he's gained within the music industry. And we even made a track with him together called Ooh La La, which is really, really cool.
All right, so you live in Joburg. You've been working in Joburg. You've been producing music now for what, 2-3 years, and you've had music in your blood from when you were little kids. So what's the big idea here, guys? Because it's really tough in the music industry right now. It's very, very difficult to get people to take notice. It's very hard to get people to actually buy music because a lot of people just pirate the stuff. You want to do performances, obviously, but that's also complicated coming out of COVID and everything. So what's the plan? Because it doesn't work the way that it used to. Even though you've been spotted by Universal, how much can a record company really do these days? People have to promote themselves. You have to use social media, and you have to use TikTok and YouTube and everything else to get things done. It's tough. What's your plan?
So yeah, 100%. I think you hit the nail on the head there. These days it's all about what we've recognized as perseverance within the music industry. You can't just release one song and then think that you've made it, or you're going to be the next pop act or any act in general. It's all about perseverance, hard work, and it's just that continued drive of determination each day.
And one of the things we've also noticed is that even though we've been signed to a record label, we cannot rely on them and be like, oh, they have all the contacts and everything. No. It's still up to us at the end of the day to actually make a move and insert importance and from our side to do what we can do best and not just rely on them. But yeah, in terms of that, at the same time, we also are studying at Stellenbosch University. So we're hoping to finish our studies at the end of this year and then pursue this dream of ours, which is obviously music.
What are you both studying? Are you studying the same thing, or are you studying something different each? What do you do?
So we're studying literally. We got different. So we're doing honors this year with the BCom Management Sciences with a focal area on entrepreneurship and innovation sciences. And we've got, we basically do the same subjects, just different thesis topics, which we're tackling at the moment, which is really cool.
Well, I mean, this is cool. And you said the magic words. You said hard work, because that's really what the music business is about now. The only people who will get ahead are not necessarily the people who have the better songs, not necessarily the people who have the better talent, or who put together a better act. It's the people who work the hardest. And that's
100%.
That's going to be really tough, because I do think it's especially difficult for breakthrough acts. People are trying to get noticed to make their way through the system. It's not set up for talent, frankly.
Yeah. So one of the things we've noticed these days, especially, is that with the modern technology and social media and so on, basically anyone can get in front of a microphone, produce some music, even use a little bit of autotune and put themselves out there. And at the end of the day, it really is up to public, and it's up to yourself also backing yourself that you believe that the music that you're going to put out to the public will be good enough for them to grasp and really enjoy. But yeah, it is tough, but at the same time, it is enjoyable, the whole process, and
we love it. And there's nothing more we'd love to do than being on a stage in front of people and singing and seeing people relate to our lyrics.
Well, I think you're in luck there, because people are really desperate to be entertained. They want to get out there again. They want to start seeing live music. So do you guys play any instruments, or are you doing do you get backtracks produced, or are you making the music live? Like, how does it work? What kind of stuff are we talking about here?
So fortunately, our mom's a piano teacher from home. So I can play a bit of piano with regards to instruments and all. But however, when it comes to beat production and all, we prefer to go and sit down with the producer. So currently we're working with Earvelt, who's was one of the main acts within Monarch the band. So we go to him, and then
Monarch are awesome. That was great.
They're absolutely insane. They're absolutely incredible. Yeah. So in terms of that, we go and sit down with him and we discuss ideas. We brainstorm with each other, feed an environment in which we can relate to, and literally from there we brainstorm and then come up with what we feel is the best products in which our fans and people within the entertainment industry would enjoy.
It sounds great, guys. I'm very excited to have you on the show. I think it's going to be a really interesting ride for you. I think you're going to have a lot of fun. I think you'll meet plenty of interesting people, and hopefully you can also along the way, carve out a proper career here. Unfortunately, also for people who start off in music, you're going to have to probably do a whole bunch of other things. So I'm pleased you're studying at Stellenbosch as well. And good luck with your theses, both of you.
Thank you so much, Gareth. Yeah, really appreciate that.
Well, if you want to find the guys, they'll tell us now where we can get them on social media, because that's also a big part of how you make it work these days, right? I mean, you started on TikTok. How's that going?
Yeah, so we started on TikTok probably about 2 months ago, and since then received a crazy amount of growth for our song called Falling For You. And that's how we got spotted by Universal Music. And one day my brother received a DM from one of the head A&R guys, and he came running into my room and he was like, whoa, I just received a DM. And then since then, we're like back and forth process, chatting, and just coming to conclusions in terms of agreements and so on. And
initially, before we started TikTok, we actually started it 2 years ago during a year and a half when it was the major lockdown within South Africa. Right. And we started making a few videos. Obviously, our videos back then were trying to be more comedic in a way and stuff like that. And we started looking at it and thinking, no, this is actually really, really cringe. So we took a complete halt and completely stopped doing that. And then once again, 3 months ago, we decided to start again. And ever since then, we haven't looked back. We actually, it's helped us in terms of boosting our music.
It takes a real musician to listen to their own stuff and go, ooh, that's a bit cringe. It's a hard. That's like a parent looking at their kid and going, I've got to give this one back.
That's so true.
Good, Yeah,
it's so true. No one realizes how many times like artists actually listen to their songs over and over and over before they actually put it out to the public.
Yeah, and listen, especially when you struggle to find a good producer and a good studio to help you put the thing together, that's tough work. And if you can find someone who's really good at that, you're like half the work is done. All right, gents, so good to see you. Thanks for being on the show this morning.
Thank you so much, Gareth.
Where can people find you? Because they're going to want to follow you on social media now. We all want to know. Now we're part of your story, whether you like it or not. So we got to follow you guys and see what happens.
Awesome. Yeah. So everyone can find us on @Saxby Twins. We're very active on Instagram, TikTok, and we use Facebook occasionally. But Instagram's our main platform in which we're the most active on, especially TikTok also. And everyone can just go search us there, even on various streaming music platforms. And our socials will pop up.
Awesome. @Saxby Twins. Find them on all the different social media and follow them as we see their career explode. Hopefully you guys end up being huge, monstrous successes all over the place, and we could say we spoke to you first.
Thank you so much, Gareth. And honestly, from our side, it's a real privilege to be on here. We know we've followed you since the Idols days, and it's honestly it's a real privilege.
Yeah, we said that at the same time also.
Good to have you both on here. But please keep confusing people about who's who. Like really mess with them. I mean, it's like such a superpower. It's such a weapon that you can use that the rest of us can't deploy. You must 100%. Mess with people's heads. Keep on. One of you must say that you're the other one. You got to occasionally get like a girlfriend and confuse the hell out of her. You've got to tell people that it's that one of you has gone overseas and then the other one does everything, but actually you're both doing it, so that they think you're doing double the work. It's amazing. There's so much you can do. All right,
We'll keep those in mind.
All right, guys, lovely to see you. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, guys.
That's the Saxby Twins, and apparently they've already had on I think this is on YouTube, 97,760 views since February of this year. That's fantastic. So good for them. That's according to Parallel Parking. Cool guys. I mean, if you've only been on since February this year and you've almost got 100,000 views, that's pretty damn good. Well done, guys. That's nice. And as I said, I like to find out who's doing things in music at the moment. I haven't been paying as much attention as I used to, especially when I was on music radio. So it's nice to see this. As I mentioned earlier, we can have Ben join us in a moment or two. We've got Gord joining us at 7 o'clock. It's going to be a busy morning today. We got loads of things to talk about, and some funny comments coming in here. Some people talking about the government and and how stupid they are about the things that they've still got going since the pandemic broke out. And then Audrey's asking a good question about someone we interviewed not so long ago. Do you know that if that movie has been made by the students that we had on? They're making a movie about their Brygrid being stolen. I haven't actually caught up with them, but maybe it's a good idea to check in. We spoke to them this year still, so I think you've got to wait just a little bit longer before we find that out. More comments on the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial. That is going ahead and becoming more and more embarrassing. I was actually talking to someone about that yesterday. It's so bad. You know, if you thought Hollywood was shit before, you have to realize, like, Amber Heard and Johnny Depp have just taken things to a new level of shit, because these are not good people. You would not want to be around either of these people. You look at them and you say, well, they've got success. They're both good-looking people. They've got lots of money. They're world famous on a huge scale, on a scale that most people would never be able to even comprehend in their wildest dreams. And yet they behave like trash. They behave like the trashiest people from the trashiest neighborhood in the whole of South Africa. I mean, you know, the shitting in the bed or everything else. Congo Chris says, I have a choice for you this morning. Would you rather be terrible at sex, be married to Amber Heard, or have to clean all the air fryers in your city once a month? Well, count me out of the air fryers. That one's not going to happen. Being married to Amber Heard that's a death sentence. I mean, I think eventually you won't be able to have sex anyway, because you'll be so turned off by her psycho behavior. In the beginning, it'll be a turn on, don't get me wrong, but later on, you'll go crazy too. And then the choice of being terrible at sex. Maybe I am already terrible at sex. How do you know I'm not, Congo Chris? So maybe that's a moot point. Here he is. We haven't seen him for a long while. And Ben has been doing something really cool, which is why he's only joining us now at 6:30. Did you go on your walk this morning? The same thing?
Every day, Gareth. Every day.
Just explain this. I think this is quite cool. So Ben is doing this thing where he follows the same route every morning for a whole year. And he takes pictures at the same spot along this route. And then he's going to put them together into like a time lapse where you get to watch how the seasons in a year in Johannesburg change the neighborhood completely. I think it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, this makes me sound so old. Hey? Yeah, but it's with the whole fitness with the whole fitness and wellness thing, it's all about just trying to keep trying to find the next 1% of the improvement. So, you know, having a morning structure is so important, as you would know, being a professional in the broadcasting industry. So I wake up at 5. And I take 5 photos. Yeah, so one on my roof, one on my face, which obviously changes, and at this age, it just changes rapidly all the time.
And first thing in the morning, I don't know if anyone is.
It's
brave
not good.
Jesus, and your face first thing in the morning. I sometimes start this show and think, oh, they're gonna think I was fucked by a train last night because I looked like this, and that's just rough, how you look. I know.
Yeah, Gareth, it's so rough.
Not for sissies.
And I guess as a guy, you shouldn't be conscious of this because it'll only make you upset. But like, your face ultimately loses elasticity. I think that's what it really boils down to. So look, another reason why I'm doing this is that it locks me into something for an entire year. So there's no flakiness, because as it gets cold, like I'm looking right now as the sun is just rising. So it was warm in January, obviously, bright. So like the photos of my face are like happy in sunshine. And then now it's like, kind of like pruny in the dark, but it's cool because it just gives you like a purpose. So no matter what, like even if you're hungover, which happens from time to time, I still do drink a bit. Red wine kills me, but I do like it. But every morning when I wake up, all I have to do is walk. So there's no excuses. Like, you can't be that feeble, you can't walk.
And so do you do this? You do this every single day, or do you take one day a week off or anything?
Monday to Friday, and then the weekends I generally try sleep in, so I wake up at like 6. But yeah, I mean, if you get into a position where you can wake up every single morning at the same time, and if you can go to bed at the same time, again, I know this is hugely boring for most people who just wouldn't want to do this, but that's exactly how you build up good sleep memory, essentially, good sleep habits, and that's how you get good sleep. And obviously at this age, that's how you raise your testosterone, because if you're not getting good sleep, then you're going to get bad testosterone. And then Congo Chris, there's no choice, but will be bad at sex. So you can't help that. But
we can't afford that. I mean, you can't have more years of bad sex.
Can't have even more bad sex on an already aging body, which gives you bad sex. You just can't have that. So yeah, I'm tackling a lot of things with this little morning project. It gives me structure. It gives me something to wake up to, be very productive around. And then this area that I live in is very, very pretty. So there's all kinds of trees. And obviously the jacaranda trees, which are aliens from South America, they bloom in the November time. So right now I'm looking at them and they look shit because it's winter, but they're going to get leafy and they're going to get purple, and this time lapse is going to show this whole metamorphosis of plant.
There's nothing nicer. I have to force myself to think about this because I'm an optimist. But in spring, you forget how shitty winter was. But now going into autumn is just the pits. So Ben, while we're on this, because it's seldom that we're not interrupted by 17 other guests on the show when you do join us. I really like the stuff that you're doing in terms of, and you've started a new Instagram account too, which is kind of about, the sort of fitness that people in their 40s might be able to take part in to improve themselves. I love stuff that improves yourself. I think a lot of people do, and it's not an age thing. I think people all over the world are just really into this whole self-improvement thing. We all want to be the best version of ourselves that's possible, not only because then we'll be happier, we'll feel more fulfilled, we'll have a structure to our lives. And the biggest problem I would say in the world today, especially with people who are not having a good time, is that they lack that purpose and structure. So I love this stuff. It's really helpful. It's handy. Are you going to be putting out like daily, bits of info? Are you going to be putting out one thing a week, whether it's a piece of physical exercise you can do, whether it's the cold showers, whether it's you're waking up at the same time every day? These are things people would love to know. I'd love to know.
Look, I think that the last 3 years have been so interesting for me from I've just, so much has been changing in my life. I know this is going to sound hugely self-righteous, but I don't care about that stuff anymore. But I just think that if you can find ways to be a better person, the world's going to be a better place. I know that sounds so convoluted at this stage of the day, but people out there are just so average, and they seem to be okay with average because they don't know what the other thing is. But I realized the other thing's actually quite easy. You look at men's health models. Firstly, there's quite a lot of airbrushing going on there. There's a lot of preparation, dehydration. You don't look like that. People don't like that. Don't look like that all year round. Okay. Yeah. But you look at them and you go, oh, I wish I could be like that. And I can never be like that. I've got poor genetics. I've got a dad bod. I've got a gut, whatever. But all of those people would have the exact same. Yeah. All those people would have the exact same thing if they had your shit mindset. So I really have been exploring this whole mindset thing. I made the conscious choice that I don't want to be like my friends and be married with kids. And, it's just, so what do you do with your time? You be a drunk or, like I said in the show quite a few times. And I just found that the alternative is actually not that hard. People just keep making excuses because excuses and victimhood is like a currency. So they keep going on that. So what I really, really want to do, and this is another thing that I've become quite disillusioned with, my industry, as in I work in marketing, right? There's certain parts I love it. There's certain parts where I feel like I didn't need to exist today. For what I did.
You're very realistic about this. I wouldn't say you're optimistic or pessimistic. You're somewhere in the middle.
Nah. So I would really like to get to a stage in life where, if I can help 10 people and do these kind of things, and it gives me more purpose and makes me feel happier. And ultimately, whenever I've been in social circles, I've always done a lot of listening of late, mostly because people just whine and bitch, and I just can't participate in that anymore. So I just listen. And there's a very common thread that people do want to be better, but they don't know how to be better. So what I want to do, and I've started this average athlete account, is that I want to show people that it's actually not the hardest thing in the world. Sure, you're never going to look like the men's health model if you just suddenly drop eating macaroni and cheese. There are so many different things you need to do in order to get to there. But it's also it's what we should be doing. It's what we used to do. Humans used to be quite slim. There's this great meme that's been around for a while now. There's people on a beach in the 70s and people on a beach now. And it's a different planet. There's people have doubled and tripled some stages. And if you're a fat and unhappy guy, Gord can testify to this because, Gord basically lost 2 people in weight.
He lost 2 people, yeah.
Yeah, basically. And you'll ask him without prying too much into his conscious around this, but he wasn't happy. So therefore he wasn't probably the best friend or brother or son or whatever these things are. The moment now, you ask him how he's feeling now, he'll be like, yeah, I'm so happy. I'm doing so well at stuff. And everything about his life will be better.
Right.
And
2 quick
not
things.
hard.
Simpiwe, who's in the studio in Joburg, really wants to see your cup. So just show them your coffee cup there. People are interested in that for some reason. Oh, it's Tigger from Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, I'm an absolute child and cat person. So yeah, I've had the Tiger cup because it's really big, and I drink lots of boiling water in the morning.
You just have hot water.
Yeah, so it's a hydration thing. So I don't, when you obviously slept for the 8 hours, you don't have any liquids. So I do water before you do coffee, because coffee is a stimulant, right? Water, you need to replenish and hydrate and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, Gareth. So this stuff's natural, and it's happy, and it's fun, and it's not as hard as people think. And that's like the one thing I'd always want to try and share with people. And then ultimately, you start getting better at like dropping things. Like I think this week I had my last burger. It's not about becoming a Nazi about these kind of things, but it's just there are little better things, and you default into these really bad habits because everyone else is doing it. But what if everyone else is doing good things? Then you would just be better.
Well, another thing someone asked in the questions earlier is how was the Sun City trip that you and I took, where we went up and down on the rides the whole time? And I explained already that it was a fantastic weekend. We behaved like 15-year-olds. We were literally competing with the 15-year-olds going up and down on the rides, and it was you've got to find like little mini adventures, right? People always spend their whole life thinking, well, one day I'll climb Kilimanjaro, but actually in the interim you can do interesting things. You can do fun stuff that makes you enjoy life, that makes you feel alive, that
absolutely
puts you in a situation where you get a bit of an adrenaline rush, where you feel like you are doing exercise, you're having fun, and you're laughing a lot. That's part of the enjoyment day to day that people miss out on.
Exactly. Laughing's very good for core.
Damn right.
Yeah,
all right.
Really good.
So some people here are asking questions. Here's Tachleho, who says, how old is Ben? I'm motivated to get my best possible body yet. Well, you don't look like you're very old, just judging by the profile picture there. But you're talking mostly to people now in their 40s, right? When you speak about the average athlete, but anyone can start any time.
Yeah, everyone. It's about fundamentals. Like I'm only sharing this kind of stage of the journey because I'm 40, so I can't relate to someone who's 28. Mentally and physically, we're very different people. So the things that I'm talking about now is that I feel like when you get to 35, you're either divorced, you've got kids, so you've given up on yourself in somewhere between those two factors. You've already done terrible training, so you've got yourself into bad habits and obviously fallen off the rails. And you're also at a stage where you probably got disposable income where you can invest in yourself. So that's why I think what I'm talking about is a good stage in life to get it going. But if you've got the gift of youth, Tehillah, if you've got the gift of youth, you got to use it, because it's all about time in the game,
Also, you can do this in your 60s. I mean, here's parallel parking. I'm turning 60 this year, and I'm ripped, best body ever. I mean, that's terrific.
That's fantastic.
The body's just like the thing that the external world sees. That's one way we can judge whether someone's lazy or not. And we do judge, and people don't like this. I mean, the body positivity movement, it gets very cross. I heard this amazing story yesterday about this blogger. She's a fat female travel blogger, and she does this blog on how hard it is to travel as a fat person, and she weighs something like 180 kilograms. She's a British woman. Yeah. And she travels around, and now she wrote this blog about how airplanes need to be redesigned because it's not comfortable for fat people. She says, I can hardly get down the aisle. It's really, really difficult for me. And then when I get to my seat, I can see that everybody else is really worried that they're going to end up sitting next to me, and the seat's too small, and I couldn't even put down the tray table because I'm so big that the tray table won't fold down in front of me, so I can't do any work, blah, blah, blah.
Is this a spoof account, or is she being serious?
No, she's being dead serious. Now,
Can you imagine how self-indulged you are? You think that Boeing or Airbus has to recreate a piece of machinery when you can just maybe lose your weight?
Right. No. She doesn't want to lose weight. She's very comfortable with her size. She thinks it's great. She's going to be dead in probably about 10 years, but she is enjoying her life.
She just described 8 things about her life that's not great, though. Being fat.
Well, this is it, right? So it's not really body positivity, because if they were happy about it, they wouldn't have to say they're happy about it.
Yeah, of course not.
Anyway, I thought about this, and it excited me in some way. I'm like, well, if the fat lobby, because everybody these days, just especially in corporations, they all kowtow to this stuff. They're so terrified of being cancelled that they fall for this stuff immediately. So if her blog ends up on the desk of the chairman or the CEO of Boeing or Airbus, and they do change the configuration of planes, we could all benefit. More legroom.
No,
I think they'll make.
Again, Gareth said it would just mean more expensive tickets. You know, we don't live in a fantasy world. There's another thing about fat people is that they live in a fantasy world with this stuff, because if there's more space, there's less passengers, which means there's more I mean, again, economics. There's no economics in her calorie counting on a daily basis, so she doesn't have it in the real world either.
No, just for
It's not going to work.
For a minute there, I was fantasizing about this
Sorry.
idea that, okay, so the fat lobby will push so hard that the airlines will be embarrassed about how they've been squeezing us in like sardines, and maybe air travel will become more comfortable again.
Sorry, a bit more expensive then.
So we were going to get to headlines. We'll get to those later on. I want to ask you about something else. Ben gave me this book, which I've started reading now. It's
Nice.
The story of Deneys Reitz, a real South African hero. An amazing man. I mean, I didn't know anything about him until you told me about the guy.
Well, that's what I was so surprised seeing is whenever I think of like local history, I know you know everything about it. So I read this book so I could be more smart with you when we talk. And you don't know about the guy. I was very surprised by that. How far in the book are you?
So I knew he existed, but I understood that he was around during the Anglo-Boer War and post that he had this really amazing life full of incredible adventures. I mean, this is one guy's life, but if you read it, it should actually be 4 people, because he seems to have done so many amazing things.
Well, he stayed alive during 2.5 wars, essentially, so he should have been 4 people.
Yeah, and he not only survived, he kind of thrived, and everything he took on was just like a big adventure for him. What an amazing, amazing guy. But I didn't know a lot about him. So I've just started, as in, like I started the first chapter last night. So I'm making very slow progress, but I'll get going. And it's just awesome. I mean, I love the fact that there are these stories available to people. And, we're all looking for new books, but there are old books that were written. And that was a different time. And the way that he talks about, the early 1900s in South Africa, it's fascinating to hear what was going on in this country then. It was a totally different universe.
Yeah, there's this great saying that I heard recently is that if people want something to fall, they should probably figure out why it rose in the first place. And there's so much in this country that people just don't care about in the past. I know the past is obviously saddened by certain events and certain ways that people treated other people, but then again, like, that's civilization, right? That's not South Africa. In civilization, people have tried to oppress people because people want power, people want control. So you can take that, run it back to Jesus times, if you're into that, all the way through. So it's not like there was one only bad thing in this world. And what this book tells us is, like, why do certain people feel passionate about this country? Why do certain people hold such things so dear to them? And also, like, what the British did, how the Afrikaans people came to be, local tribes, certain areas, and there's places that you just take for granted, like you could be driving down to the Cape, or you could be on some road that you might not have been on before, and suddenly you see this strange square structure, and you think, like, well, what is that? Those little block houses and what happened around those for a certain time in this country, it's very interesting, and it's good to know these kind of things. But there's just something so incredible about this guy's spirit, and as you say, adventure. I mean, I'm sure that after reading this book, you'll do a blind history episode on this guy and all the things around him. But like the one thing to take out this morning in today's chat is, like, that guy, he lived a time of absolute adventure, like absolute adventure. Like for a long stage in his life, he ate by killing something. It's a strange thing to hear now, because this is a civilized man, right? This isn't like someone who lost the plot and started eating like mushrooms every single day and he lived off the land. He lived in a time where he had to go and like scout out certain areas. And, he eventually ended up in quite heavily in politics. He was very close to General Smuts. And at one stage, he was even deputy prime minister. But one of his key things was to go out and, like, he was in charge of irrigation and forestry and these kind of things. But when he went on government visits, he would go walk with local people, and they'd like take down like a wildebeest if they wanted to eat that night, and he's on official government duty. And it's just all these little parallels you try to draw between now and then are so interesting. But I mean, like, there's certain dams that we look at now, they went around. Like, this guy went around and said, okay, cool, catchment area, river, settlement, whatever. And then they put the works together to get that. Like, he played such an incredible role in making sure the Kruger National Park was the Kruger National Park, because he wanted a place that was just conservation. Like,
it's long-term thinking, and I think
So long-term thinking.
We're so disillusioned with the way that, people, especially in government right now, are just in it for like how much money they can take out of the till themselves right now. There's no one thinking about building dams, or someone who's thinking about where the next highway might go, or zoning towns, for example. I know there are supposedly city planners in all of our major cities, but it doesn't look like they're planning anything if you look at the way our cities are developing. It's just like this random thing. We don't have any beautiful avenues down the middle of our cities like Paris does. We don't have any parks in most of our towns, and if we do that, they're full of drunk people who've passed out and lots of litter. It's just guys like this were thinking about the greater good back in the 1900s, trying to find a way to provide enough fresh water, to build systems, to make buildings beautiful. I mean, I don't know when last in South Africa we built a truly beautiful old building. There are a couple of modern buildings that have gone up that are pretty, but most of the buildings that we have since the 60s are disgusting. They're horrible looking, ugly, concrete, glass monstrosities. And I look at some of the older buildings that must have been put up around the time that Deneys Reitz was alive, and when he was probably a young man. I think those buildings are just so much better looking. They seem like they were built for people who were a little more civilized than these ugly apartment blocks and flats that we see that were built in the 70s. Jesus, the 70s were horrible.
They really were. And back in those days, those things added to the culture. So if you've got things that complement the kind of people that you want to be or someone that you want to represent, then it just makes for a stronger civilization. And also these things that just play out in this book are so good. Like the book, basically, the one that you showed there, that's all three of his books. So he wrote this amazing trilogy. The first one he wrote while he actually self-exiled in Madagascar. After the Second Boer War, when eventually they came to a truce with the British, he was like, okay, cool, I'll lay down my guns, because somehow he stayed alive. I mean, this dude, he trekked with a few other really sort of determined Afrikaans guys. He ended up in like the Cape. Like the Boer War was basically up here because Transvaal and the Free State were separate countries, and then that was where the big. But this oak, he just suddenly made it down to the Cape, and I don't know. But then at the end, they said, okay, well, you have to now declare allegiance to the crown, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, fuck that. And then he ended up going to Madagascar for a few years. He wrote this book, and he wrote a second book, and he wrote a third book. So essentially, it's from 1900 to 1948. It's a time. It's a time where you can learn a lot about today by referencing that past.
I hear people now, especially in America, they say, "Oh well, if abortion is outlawed, I'm just going to move to Canada." But none of them ever do. These celebrities, for example, who say, "Oh, I can't handle this government. They're all tyrannical." Here in South Africa, we're like, "Oh, government's so tyrannical. No one's going to get up and move to Madagascar." Then we're not principled enough. We say we are, but we're actually not. We're just a bunch of moaning, whining, complaining pieces of shit, really. We've got to get our act together. You got to sacrifice something if you want it to stand.
Yeah, exactly. And this guy wasn't bigoted at all, and he was very open-minded. So even though he did that, he ended up fighting for the British in the First World War, because his theory was that it's better to be under Commonwealth sort of rule than for the Germans and German ideology to take over from the world. So even though he was so principled against the British taking over South Africa, he realized in a bigger picture that the world was under attack by this sort of the Germans were always quite shitty. I think pre-1960, they weren't agreeable people. Maybe they're still not agreeable. They're just more sort of sedate about it.
Not right.
And his whole thing, like, this is a guy who went and basically got malaria for 5 years and pushed oxen around because he'd rather do that than be part of Britain. And then he just thought, like, okay, bigger picture, life's changing, got to do something different now. And it's like people don't change their minds nowadays. They double down on stupid. They double down on certain things they thought were right without actually looking how the tea leaves are starting to fall.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Have you got plans for the weekend? Anything fun coming up?
No, not really. I'm playing golf again. I haven't played golf in quite a while. I just don't really.
Did you fall out of love with golf, or the kinds of people who play golf?
Yeah, it's a bit of a combination of all of that, I guess. No, I don't think I fell out of love with it. I just sort of fell in love with other things. Yeah, it's actually quite a strange thing. I was in Cape Town this week for some work stuff, and as much as we always pull the piss out of Cape Townians and like the place in general, it's like I've never had a stronger feeling to perhaps move back. And something that always like rooted me in Joburg was golf. It's the best golf city in the world. I always said this. And it always rooted me here. And now take away golf, and suddenly I start looking at it and going, okay, so I could probably do this, this, and this, and I can do that here. Interesting. So my mind's now shifted, all because of like no real golf. So yeah, I'll play tomorrow. But I don't enjoy beer, and golf is about golf and drafts. So.
I think a lot of people just a lot of hobbies that people take on are just excuses to drink.
Yeah, and I've always tried to like play the other side, saying it's not. But then I look at people and how they play golf and how they go about golf, and also just time of life. Like people who were my solid golf friends, they've either moved to Cape Town or they've had children. So the whole there's just less people to play golf with. And I really cherish my free time, and I'm not spending it with someone who I don't agree with, or not agree with, but I'd rather not spend time with. And 5 hours in golf, it's a long time to be around someone who's a knob.
It's picking up on the architecture discussion. Parallel Parking says architecture used to include the art of beauty. Now it barely includes necessity for functionality. Building on a budget often negates aesthetics. Oh yeah, nobody cares about making anything beautiful anymore. It's all about like, we need 3 bathrooms and we need 1 kitchen and we need a staff area here, and it's all just ugly. It's ugly, ugly, ugly. Jared Cubis also says you think South Africa built ugly buildings in the 70s. If you've seen the Barbican in London, it is a brutalist megastructure that is concrete and brick. Also, that kind of architecture harkens back to a type of government. I mean, the fascists in Germany also built those ugly things out of concrete. And part of the reason I'm so angry about the 70s and how it's ruined so many cities in South Africa with hideous colors, mosaics, the most dreadful mosaics, concrete, glass. The apartment buildings all over Pretoria, for example, that are so ugly that just living in them must depress the people who live there. If you live in a really ugly building that was built by some architect who's trying to cut corners or had no idea of how to make something beautiful, I think it affects your state of mind. I think you're condemning yourself to thinking a certain way because you live in a certain environment. And architecture is massively important. I remember we spoke to someone on the show not so long ago who's developing new buildings in Cape Town, I think. And part of the whole thing is that he wants to make buildings beautiful. He doesn't want to make them ugly. These days, it's all about function and how you can cut corners with costs. And that makes some very boring buildings.
But it's a bit of a flawed argument, because if they say it's all about function, they're functioning in a shit way. And then that translates to the people. It's very interesting what you said there about sort of governments. If you drive out of Johannesburg, there's that Charlotte Macleay hospital, which is dreadful. I mean, it looks like someone just gave a child blocks and they like drew windows onto it. And the reason why that building is there, actually, as it is in its spot right there, is that all the major landlords back in the day, obviously the national government, those nationalist people didn't like, because they were rich, they were British, they were very against them. They basically built that there as a sign of like, this is us, we're in charge. So if you ever look at that and go, I wonder what they're thinking.
Yeah, all those beautiful old houses that the landlords used to have.
So many of those national monuments were just ripped apart because they put that Bleesbrock abortion of a structure there, and it was purely as a show of strength. It was like, we're in charge, this is our place, fuck you. And they put it on the most beautiful part of Joburg, and they made an eyesore forever and ever. And that's government for you.
It is so hideous. So listen, we've got lots of other stuff to talk about. I want you to hang around if you can. Gord is going to join us for the first time in a long time, in just a short while. And plenty more. Ben is with us this morning. Ben Karpinski, you can get hold of us on the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Hopefully you're having an awesome Friday morning and you've got a good weekend planned. Stick around. Plenty more to come.
This week on the Auto Trader podcast.
Do you have to register and license a car as soon as you buy it?
Well, because I know the answer to this, you've got a predetermined amount of time in order to make sure that car gets into your name. And the bottom line principle is there are 2 sides to car registration, and people often forget the other side. And the other side is car deregistration. So effectively, when someone sells a car, they'll send a document into the licensing department to deregister the car. Catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
Do you suffer from collectivism?
I started collecting when I was about 8 years old.
Do you have an obsession with objects?
I sort of got into collecting TV cars.
Are you a fanatic? A devotee? Are you someone exhibiting enthusiasm or strong passion?
When lockdown hit, when everyone was kind of bored at home, they started Googling, like, what are these things worth these days?
Cliff Central dispenses a weekly dose of collectomania. Join me as I talk to compulsive collectors. Fascinating.
The frame's total value is probably about 12,000 Rand.
Possibly a little weird.
I developed this infatuation with the Statue of Liberty.
Collectomania, Mondays on the Gareth Cliff Show. Brought to you by SA Gold Coin Exchange and the Scoin Shop. All right. It is Friday morning. We've got Ben, and we're going to be joined in a moment by Gord Laws, who we haven't seen for a little while on the show. He's got some exciting things happening in his life. We also got to get to two quick stories in the course of the next few minutes. Got to hear what everybody thinks about Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, because that's the big trial at the moment. And there's so much we can learn from that about the way humans treat each other, the way celebrities in Hollywood behave when the cameras are off, and how they are really not better than us. In fact, they may be worse than us in many ways. And look at that. There's Meowsers.
Definitely worse. Yeah, Meowsers she's insistent to be on the call. Every time I'm on a call, she needs to be here. So.
That's so cool that she just sits there and commands the space. Now she's climbing in. Look at that. She wants all the attention.
Well, she knows that now she's been spoken about, so now she's over it.
Okay. Yeah, typical. Cats have got such fucking attitudes. All right, let's talk to Gordo. Let's see what he's up to. Hello, Gord Laws.
Champions, hello.
Ah, good.
Hey, Gordon.
Ken Bobinski. How you, GC?
How's it going?
How you, Mousers?
Good. So, Gordo, what's happening with you? Are you leaving the country soon? Are you already in Europe? What's the story?
I've been in London for a week today.
Oh,
I just find it amazing that Ben just scientifically proved a theory I've had about cats for ages. The only way to get rid of one is to want it there, and the only way to get one to come there to appear is to have a situation where it really isn't wanted. So now that Meowsers knows we're enjoying, it's just, I love it. Cats are the best. They literally if the word fuck you evolved into a living creature, it would be cats.
You're right. Exactly.
And they're very consistent. Huh? It's so true. Sorry, Gord, do you live in London now?
No, well, I mean, I've rented a place, if you can call it that. I've rented a bedroom with a toilet in it. I got to tell you though, it's really, really cool.
I'm really glad. I'm really glad that you sprung for a toilet with your bedroom.
Oh yeah, I had to upgrade to the toilet option because it's cold outside at night, and you could there is
such a weird flex.
I just respect the foxes out here because people give them shit for like living outside and eating the garbage, and they just try to get by. I mean, if a fox could finance a place, it probably would be George Clooney. His whole mission was to buy that fancy tree.
Yes.
And if you got to steal from Bogus and Bunsen Bean to do it,
absolutely. So, Gordo, you're in London. You're working there. What's the plan? I haven't caught up with you in a while. What's going on?
Yeah, it's been too long, dude. I kind of had this plan to stick it out in Cape Town and experience Cape Town as like a non-hippopotamus, which is a whole different experience, and sort of also moved to the UK, and I found myself thinking it's about to be the middle of winter. I had it kind of lined up about 4 months late. So instead of rushing out to get out in time for it to be very cold, I went and committed to 6 months in Sea Point, and I just had the most amazing time. So now my lease is up, and look, Gareth, as a mate, if you ever see pictures on Instagram, you're like, oh my God, moving day, and I'm carrying boxes, just unawkwardly offer me some work. It means I am utterly broke, because before I buy a pair of sneakers or a sandwich or anything with my spare income, I'm having people move me or just leaving my stuff. So you got to pay to move with my lease being up from Sea Point to Sea Point. And I figured, it's about to be very cold. I work remotely for an awesome company. And I thought, let me just ruin myself financially and go spend winter in Europe and then come back, give Sea Point another summer, and then see where I want to go after that.
In other words, you're avoiding winter. You're not actually following. Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know, Gordon. It sounds like you're on the run. Have you got someone pregnant?
Not that I'm aware of, but a lot of women don't get back to me after, so who knows? Hey, Ben, it's good to see you, dude. I just want to say, you've been quite an inspiration there, going from handsome to very fucking handsome in the last year or two.
All right, listen, guys. Everybody wants to know what do you think of? Have you been watching? Have you been paying any attention at all to the Amber Heard Johnny Depp situation that's come up? I mentioned on the show exactly a week ago that I actually wasn't paying attention, and then I realized I'm missing out on some serious entertainment here. I mean, they're talking about human turds in beds. This is a really disheveled.
What's more entertaining than turds in beds, Gareth? I mean, that's why the internet's so successful. People think it was Facebook, but actually pornography, especially turds in beds.
Listen, these two are such bad examples of humanity. It's really, really entertaining to watch.
I mean, it is and it isn't, right? Like, my thing is that I can't avoid it because of the intrusive, screw the customer, Illuminati first algorithms of social media, where you follow 4,000 friends and you see the same 3 of their posts for 2 days, and then shit you have no interest in. Literally not just shit you have no interest in, the bands you like the least. So like, for real, I have never, like, the bands I least like, I get served videos of, and and then I say, like, I do not like this topic, and it's like, we won't show you any more gardening stuff. I'm like, guys. So, I can't avoid the news, and but I see, but of the news I can't avoid, bits and pieces of this, I must say, are quite amusing. Johnny Depp is he's more of a Johnny Depp character in real life than he plays in movies.
Well, even in court, his testimony, he puts on this very deep voice, and then you could see he's playing a role, right? These people probably don't really have a personality. When you've been acting for so long, I think you just absorb so many character aspects of various people that you've played in the movies that you actually lose your real personality. I mean, especially when
is he actually like Captain Jack Sparrow for real?
Yeah, maybe.
And then he's like, hey, dude, you're basically Captain Jack Sparrow, but like not a pirate. Can you wear a pirate outfit?
Here's the point, though. I've never seen displayed so openly for everybody to watch. Two people hate each other as much as these two clearly have begun to hate each other. It's so disappointing. It makes me feel like, oh, well, okay, I definitely made the right decision not getting married.
I'm trying to be above this and say it's like total horseshit and who cares. But when I saw the clip about the mega pint, I was like, I have to find out more, because like, it's at least better than a artificial sci-fi soap opera.
Yeah. What do you reckon?
Hang on a second. What's Oh no, I wouldn't dare watch this kind of shit, because it's all fake, right? These people aren't real. We've established this a while ago. It's the same thing when Will Smith slapped Chris Rock. It's not real. These people cannot be trusted with anything normal and real.
Well, in terms of Chris Rock and Will Smith, I just read again, unable to avoid a meme on Instagram about how the LA District Attorney has called like no evidence of a felony, and like I think it was Joe Rogan or someone like this. Like, well, what do you have to do? Like, unprovoked, strike someone in the face on the most broadcasted non-sport thing there is, and no evidence of a crime. Now, if any of us, especially if we were of color, let's face it, murdered someone on TV for nothing, and that person was famous, it would be like, how much jail? So it's bullshit.
Yeah, I agree with that.
They need to find 10 people who punched someone else for no real good reason, or even for a good reason that didn't have to be violence, even if they insulted their mum, on television or CCTV, and check what the outcome of all of those cases were, and just apply the average. So the average was this much fine and that much suspended sentence, or this much jail, and give Will Smith the average of 100 cases the same.
Right.
And it won't be a fine.
Won't work. It's not going to happen.
Gord, he didn't hit him. He hit him with the fingers. Chris extended his face. He was laughing afterwards. It was part of the gag. You do realize that the Oscars is the lowest rated piece of shit TV that anybody doesn't care about watching. Everyone's in on the joke. It's all bullshit. These people have their own secret society. It starts with the pedophilia ring, which is run by Hollywood, and now it's offshooting into acts of staged violence. I mean, and this is why I'm happy that Amber Heard Johnny Depp thing is actually coming to light. I'm not going to watch it, but it just proves my point that these people aren't real and they cannot be trusted. I will subscribe to Netflix. I will go watch movies. They'll get my money that way, but they're not getting my attention in anything revolving around being a human.
That's also a really fair point. Like, for example, the person's job is to, I'm trying to think of a good example. They're a UPS delivery person, and they deliver you your UPS, and they're polite about it while they do it. and then they bugger off and they do a good job at that. It's like, I'm fine with you as a human, mate. If you've got stuff going on in your personal life, I don't care. As long as you're not doing something completely unbelievably criminal, who cares what's going on at home? I see it the same way. It's like, you act in a movie, it's entertaining to me or it's not. And as long as you're not like turning out to be the dude from Lost Prophets or Jeffrey Epstein, I don't care. Like, it turns out beloved entertainer Dave McDave is a bit of a deuce. Whole world give a shit and fight about it. Like, some oak slapped his... Basically, they're basically colleagues. They're like Hollywood actors. Some oak slapped a colleague.
Why are we getting day-to-day updates on Amber Heard, but we still don't know who was on Jeffrey Epstein's list? That's what I want to know.
It's because it's easy, Gareth. It's easy. You can just put a camera in a courtroom. People who like to be on camera will do camera things, and people who watch things all day digest it. It's easy. It's the easiest thing in the world to get Will Smith to have some stupid mock slap of Chris Rock. It's hard to take on Pfizer and find out why they're dumping information. It's hard to go into China and say, hey, guys, who actually made this thing?
Well, I mean, again, here I am talking about how painful news is, but I'm going to talk about news nonetheless.
You love news, Gord. All my friends, you love news.
You should have been a TV news reader. You would have.
You should have been Eamon Holmes.
You see, I was extremely, extremely handsome for most of my life, and now that I've let myself slide, my TV opportunities missed. But I say how much it drives me nuts that we not only choose to care, but are kind of positioned to care. And if whatever you use to highlight the example, whether it's Will Smith and Chris Rock, or whether it's the Ukraine war, or whether it's Pfizer, people who actually have no knowledge, like, let's face it, I'm not an expert on any of this. I don't know what's happening at Pfizer, and I have read books voluntarily after being forced to in high school, and so let's use the Ukraine. Terrible, awful, and horrific, but identical to what was happening there 4 years ago when Russia not only did the same thing but actually took Crimea. I'm asking, why not only are we allowed to know and care now, but are encouraged to? So in terms of the whole shady Illuminati thing, I'm like, maybe there's an agenda when not something similar. Episode 2 of the same show airs and they want you to watch it. Whereas previously it was a bit of trouble there in the east of Europe, Russians, bit of Russian aggression. Tensions are high around that area. Tensions are high. They took an entire province. Now they're doing the exact same thing. And it's you all need to know, and we all need to care. And you have to fight with each other about what we're telling you might be your opinion. And I'm just why do people not see? I'm not saying how you must feel about it either way. I'm horrified by it. But I was horrified by it when no one was supposed to talk about it 3 or 4 years ago too. And that's the kind of thing. It's what's the difference between this particular news outrage and the 70 the same that we're not only not encouraged to talk about, but that no one even knows about?
This is where people start saying, oh, what, you're just a conspiracy theorist. But I think the conspiracy theorists, if you consider the last 2.5 years that we've been through, the conspiracy theorists were more right than the people who are supposedly giving us the news.
The thing about the conspiracy theorists as well is that they screw their own credibility because they don't actually know anything. You've got this whole thing of and when I say you, I'm not being judgmental of everyone. I myself have done this. All of these things, if you want to talk about the weight loss stuff or any of that, I'll be people do this and they think this way. And I'm realizing I myself have always done that. It's very hard for me to try to talk about that without making a person feel kind of accused for being in the same situation I've been in. So it's I can't find this stuff fascinating and then criticize other people. But a conspiracy theorist might be right with no information. We have a human need to be right. It's a well-known psychological principle. I believe it's called Attribution Theory, where it's much more important when the shed is on fire, right here next to where the three of us are sitting, that we fight about whose fault it is. And if we can't work that out, which one of us is the least to blame, while the shed just burns down, and we all have buckets of water, right? So you might be right that lizard people, but it's something your drunk uncle said, or something you read in a meme that was badly photoshopped enough that you believed it. And now without any of the information, you're look, I don't know what's actually going on with science. It's just bullshit. I don't know what's happening with I don't know anything about these governments, but they're definitely up to something. So whether we're being hoodwinked or not, until you actually have some understanding as to the system that's cheating you, you're a passive recipient. You're I have no agency, and I'm going to Yelp complain about the people who do.
You gotta decide what to spend your time on and what your attention is going to go towards. This is again where I defer to Ben. Like you've just cut a lot of this crap out of your life. You just don't care anymore about celebrities or about news stories far away. Or
it's kind of pointless. It all goes back to information diets. People talk about this quite a lot. You know, we spoke about, Gord, before you got on, how poor architecture reflects society and like how oppressive governments are at a certain time. Exactly what you take in through media and all this kind of crap reflects what you as a person become. You just think if you are sitting, I mean, you guys will watch the Amber Heard Johnny Depp thing for entertainment, because I also love a good shit in the bed story. But there are people out there who are literally taking sides in this. It's like, oh, I can't believe this happened. They were a married couple, and they're investing on a human level. Shit, that is a fucking dangerous thing to do.
That's a really, really good point / insight, because like we feel like we lack, and I myself have lacked agency to do anything about any of this. We feel like we can't change our jobs. We can't change our lives. We are stuck in the system that at once traps us and also should provide for us like an altruistic parent. So we'll fight with each other about something like this and feel like we're engaged. If we argue about whether the Ukraine, Russia, the rest of the world should get involved, we feel like we're actually having a say. No one's even listening. It's like, I'm very fond of Manchester United, as much as it's breaking my heart how shit we are and have been for years, but that's a passion of mine. But I don't believe I'm part of the organization. I'm the world's nerdiest Metallica fan with tattoos and everything, but I don't go like I am as an entity a Metallica fan. So I don't have agency to cause the band to do anything, no matter how much I love them. If I die and the record of me gets expunged from history, United will not be any different. They might just have like a few hundred less pounds over the last few decades from shit I've bought. But if I fight with the two of you about what we think about what they're doing, we all feel like we did our best to steer the ship and it should go right now because we got stuck in fighting a hell.
You're pointing out a very important thing. Is like people find when they haven't got a lot of purpose and meaning in their life, they find ways to create fake purpose and meaning, whether it's being a huge fan of something or whether it's being outraged by
your
something.
Outfit, the music,
your identity,
your tattoos.
You know, I mean, for example, I got into a discussion with someone in Cape Town yesterday when I was there for a whole 24 hours about how important it is for that person to be Cape Townian. Like it's an important part of their life. They think about it all the time. They actually have time in their day to think about being Cape Townian, which is to me ludicrous. I don't care where I'm from. If you think it's important that I'm from Johannesburg or Pretoria or Gauteng, good for you. I don't think about that as being important. But it seems to me that the more real, interesting, and important stuff you have to do in your day, the less you worry about these labels, the less you worry about being a fan of this or opposed to that or an activist for this. It's only when you have nothing going on that you have to substitute that with these crappy second-rate reasons to be alive.
Yeah, dude, I am, again, I just want to say that like we have this massive amount of Dunning-Kruger. Like I'm working on trying to compile the notes, and I did this in 2012, and for a year I compiled notes on the most rah-rah Tony Robbins, you can do it, Sparta, die trying, how to lose weight unsustainably and painfully for as long as you can before it fails book. And when I went to sit and write it, this email that I'd been mailing to myself for a year and a half was gone. I don't know how, no trace of it, and I was heartbroken. But that would have been a good book to get you to like angrily start losing weight for as long as you can. Now I'm trying to compile the same notes of another one, and the insights are sort of psychological around. It's not just like about food. There's so much to it. And everything I want to say, people don't do this, you don't realize that, is all stuff I've done. So we also, myself included, are Dunning-Kruger 1,000%. Like you can say, people, you identify with stuff that's not you, and everyone will listen and nod and go, yeah, absolutely, people do that. All of us, myself as well. So, it's easy to criticize something we all do to an extent. But for me, like realizing how much agency you do have in your own life that you either don't see or don't believe in, how many choices you've got, how much of this bullshit is up to you, how the things that you complain about you can change. But we think we replace that with believing we have agency, arguing with each other about what other people should do.
You've just done exactly that. You upped and decided you're going to go to London for 6 months. I mean, what a win. Dude, I think 4. That's brave. That's interesting. That makes for a fucking change in your life, which you maybe needed. Maybe it's something that you just wanted to do as a little side adventure. I
It's
wonder how
only
many
3 weeks in London, by the way. I'm all over the place for a few months.
even better. You don't have anything holding you down, and I think that's brave, dude.
I'll have debt holding me down.
Yeah,
well Gareth, that's exactly why he's gone, because he don't want to be held down by the pregnancy that he's running away from.
Or just in case they are ready, that they can't.
He said 4 months. This woman's probably like 3 months away. He's like, okay, look, I'm gonna at least go away.
I just appreciate the fact that the two of you are building this little joke that I'm enjoying on the assumption that I get laid. I mean, it's flattering of you, Ben, to assume I actually can have sex.
Really, Gord, you've been throwing dick as long as I've known you. Things changed.
Throwing it is such a vulgar expression, Ben. I politely present it and allow the shared usage of it in a lovely, mutual exchange. I consensually lend people my genitals from time to time.
This is like timeshare in Margate.
Oh, God. All right, listen. You guys have been called to order. One of the comments here. Why did Gord? Hang on, let me just find it because I don't want to misquote someone. This is hilarious. Somebody says Gord has to explain himself for why he stopped talking to Hi Rob, and then there was a whole story about now we've got two. We got two.
So why did I stop?
We've got
Ben, why did I stop talking to Hi Rob?
We got 2 of the 3 people on here. Hi Rob was on the other day, heartbroken that the both of you are no longer his friend.
This is such horseshit. Ben made a group with the 3 of us and then closed the group. I also was with the same exact thing that happened to Hi Rob happened to me at the same time. I was like, oh, look, me and Hi Rob are not on a group with Ben anymore. And then I hear later that he thinks I hate him. The last conversation I had with him was super great. And then the group we had to chat went away because of Ben.
Yeah, it is. It's completely me. I kind of forgot about this. Someone mentioned this a couple of months ago. Yeah, I just find Hi Rob disappointing. There's a guy with the whole world in front of him, and he just, I would say this to him. And I know it sounds clinical and it sounds mean, but yeah, I mean, you can't win them all in life, I guess. I've always liked Hi Rob. He's a good guy. Like, I mean, we all know this because on the show when he comes across and he talks, like, he's a good guy. I just
if you had met me
I don't have a huge amount of bandwidth for everyone in this world, and unfortunately, Hi Rob and what he wants to do with his life is something I can't really relate to. So therefore, I can't sincerely provide and be a part of.
100%. But like when we met Hi Rob, he was what he is, and when you stopped wanting to talk to him, he was still what he is. When you put us in this group, which I enjoyed being in, about like 3 dudes trying to help each other fix our lives. It wasn't help that he asked for. Well, I suppose a little bit to an extent. It's just we were unable to change him. He didn't become a Durst from being So I just think like I love Hi Rob for what he is. And if I criticize him for everything, I think he should be doing that I would be doing if I had agency and I was also handsome. It's that whole thing of like that good looking, handsome person with trust fund money that women love is not doing it how I would if I was that. So if he'd gone from like the most respectable, upstanding gentleman to a completely loose unit while we were on the group, I'd understand the frustration. But like if you'd met me at my most obese and then a year later didn't want to be friends with me because you can't associate with someone so obese, it would be a bit like, he didn't change, we did.
Ooh,
yeah,
huge self-realization here. This is interesting.
Yeah,
and I never ever had any problem with him. We both the group went away, and he also hasn't texted me.
He's probably listening right now. So I mean, you're talking about him as if he's in here.
Oh, Rob, how's it my fault that you also didn't text me after Ben closed our group?
Gord, I don't actually have a problem. So this, I mean, I haven't given this that much thought, not because I don't care, just that I've tried to think about other things. I don't have a problem with Rob at all. I don't have a desire for extended interaction around that.
All right,
I got you, bro. But the same reason you wanted to be friends with him in the first place is what he's doing wrong now.
I didn't know that I was opening a can of worms.
I know, me either.
Chris says, Yara, save it for Hanan. You two need therapy. Yeah.
No, actually, we're here to talk it out. directly amongst each other. What we could do is ask the whole internet who they think is right and let you guys fight and tell us what we think.
Well, it's obviously I'm wrong. I know this, but it's a personal choice I made because of the time in my day that I can focus on stuff. So, like I said,
no wrong. You guys are just in a different place.
I just love the way I introduced you three to each other through the show. You all became friends in the real world, and then we're discussing now how it all fell apart on the show. You realize I've just made you entertainment for everybody else. I don't really give two shits about whether the three of you are friends.
Dude, and I when Ben and I had met a couple of times through my mate Dale Immerman and through media and stuff, we knew each other on a high five and first name basis, and we got to be friends through the show. But it started with us being pitted against each other as enemies. And I remember after the second or third show when this like argy-bargy tension was getting a bit like palpable afterwards, I was like, dude, like, did I really bother you with what I said there? And Ben was like, dude, that was the shit. Like, it was such a great show. It was the most fun show I've had in months. And so like,
sorry, Gord. You should probably have a disclaimer that if I give you shit, it means I like you. It's this cuntiness that I have about me. Because
so you actually love Rob.
Absolutely,
you actually have realized that you've got inner feelings that you're finding hard to process towards Rob.
No, I'm not processing anything. It's that like we set this. We'll leave it at this. We set that group up because we wanted to chat about stuff. If you want to have a new group called Three Friends Who Live in Different Geographical Locations, working title, I'm also in for that.
I just want to quickly mention to add B is Gord on crack. He keeps wiping his nose. Firstly, no, I haven't done any kind of like drugs whatsoever in ages. I'd tell you if I was. If I was on crack, I would phone Gareth and be like, Gareth, look, I'm doing crack lately. Can we do a show? I've got a little bit of a sniffly cold and it's like I'm concerned. You know when you have like a 2 out of 10 sniffle and you're concerned like there is now a better than 3% but less than 10% statistically charged based on every sniffle you've had in your life that this is hypothetically possibly COVID, and now you want to like not go out. So it's cold, and I've got a little bit of it. Also, that's not how crack works, dude. Add B, you don't sniff crack as far as I know.
I'm very glad you decided to defend yourself. All right, guys, there's a story in the news. I think this is hilarious. So apparently an intruder got into Windsor Castle and spent the night there by disguising himself as a priest. Apparently, it seems to me
priests can just go in, right?
It seems to me like Windsor Castle is just like the easiest place in the whole world to break into. I mean, there was, at Prince William's 21st birthday, some guy who was dressed like a 9/11 terrorist, I think, got into the party because it was a fancy dress party, and he just a 9/11 terrorist from 9/11.
Yes, but okay, never mind. I just wanted to know what those look like, but I don't actually. Let's continue, please.
Like the guys who flew the plane into with a like a yashmak or whatever you call it. Anyway, he dressed like that. So he got into the party, and then they eventually found out, I think halfway through the party, that he wasn't meant to be there. There was this guy who I think famously in the 1970s broke into the Buckingham Palace, so not Windsor Castle, but some of the story ended up in the Queen's bedroom. And now this dude this week has spent the night in Windsor Castle by disguising himself as a priest. How do you like them apples? This is the kind of stuff that seems like.
Why is a priest just allowed to go in? I mean, I'm asking like truly curiously, like, is there certain religious denominations where they have certain seniority of like what Anglican priests have access to the palace, or do they just not bother if you're a priest to check your credentials?
That's such a good question.
Like, why is being a priest able to get you in?
Well, people don't question priests. I mean, if you look at how they've gone through civilization,
they're able to break into all kinds of stuff without consequence.
All kinds of things.
To force their way to all sorts of places.
I mean, you guys must use Occam's razor for the most simple explanation. Gord's question is a valid one, but the simple explanation is that St. George's Chapel is inside of the precinct of Windsor Castle, and there are priests who live on the property. So
now it makes total sense.
So if the guy's walking around in a priest's outfit, they're not going to bat an eyelid because they're going to be, like he must be one of the priests down there in the chapel.
So it's like dressing like a beef eater or dressing like you many generations inbred, and then you look like you part of the jaw. Exactly. So if I just had my teeth surgically completely randomized, I could actually just go in the palace. Oh no, I've got tattoos and stuff, so I probably.
No, they'd spot you, Gord. They'd spot you from a mile away. I mean, that could be better accommodation than what you've got in London at the moment. You might want to try.
I'm in Europe for 4 months, right? So I'll do 3 weeks in London paying for the accommodation. 2 weeks
Right.
with a pal in Dublin, no accommodation costs. 5 weeks in Lisbon paying, and 6 weeks in Stuttgart not paying. So basically, for 2 months or 4 months, I'm paying for it. Over that 4-month period, my accommodation costs are almost triple what they would be in Cape Town. I pay the same here in this 1-bedroom tiny place per week as I pay for a 2-bedroom place in Cape Town per month. And everything else about the expenses are higher, but it's like 110 to 100, like food costs, if you're cooking it yourself, like 125%. And if you, like me, much prefer to cook your own food and like really take what you eat quite seriously and don't especially want to be buying junk food and takeaways, like it's if you've got a mate to stay with that can tolerate you, it's actually easy to travel. It's the accommodation that is the massive factor.
Just to go back, I mean, I totally understand, and you're gonna have so much debt at the end of this, because traveling around Europe used to be something that people could do on like 100. I think there was $100 a week or whatever. There was this thing that in our parents' time you could do. There's no way you could do that now. Now it's going to cost you thousands of rands every week.
Yeah, but Gareth, in your parents' time, it was like 1 pond to 1 rond.
A pond to rond. Decimal Dan, rond cent man, giving you cents
you can't bring that
whenever he
conversation
can.
up.
A threepence for a tikkie, a 2 for a 9, and 7.5 halves equals just fine. Trade your 6s for 7s with the rond. Fuck that song explaining how you trade your money. I'm like,
oh, it's great. Decimal
threepence
Dan
for a tikkie and a tikkie for a
man. Yeah. That's still one of my favorite things. I actually played it for someone the other day, and they were like, "What? This was a real thing?" Yes, it was a
broadcasting.
Actually,
before I forget, I'm sorry if I could just interrupt quickly. Before I forget, because I will realize after the show's finished, I never brought it up. Like, to the listeners, to you, Gareth, and to the listeners of the show, for your support around Turtlebird Books and the Penguin book. It was overwhelming. Everybody messages me and like, "Oh, we miss you on the show." Occasional person is like, "I hate you. Why did you leave? You're such an asshole. How could you leave?" But I get this like messages of support. So I post on Instagram, like, "I'm going to be on the show," DMing me like, "Awesome, thank God." So this support I've always felt it. But when we dropped the book, within 2 or 3 days of being on the show, we had our highest sales spike we've ever had. We sold a few hundred copies, and probably 150 copies in SA, which was a third of our print run, and about as many overseas. So the people who've always supported me and been kind about me, and the guys who love to think I'm a dickhead, like actually put it into practice. I'd already thanked you and the GCS listenership in the book, but like every single one of you collectively and individually, like it means the world to me. And thank you so much. So now we can go back to like taking the piss. But thank you for buying my book.
That was an incredibly strategic plug for a business, eh? Fucking hell, you have mastered that. I with on bended knee.
Gareth has invited me to be on the show and talk about it. Gareth has invited me to be on the show and talk about it. I don't need to be manipulative. I'm thanking the audience for putting their literally money where their mouths are.
You notice he's extending.
It's now a 3-minute plug. It's just good. You're an absolute masterclass, right? Yeah.
And purchase my book with this free advert that I've weaseled my way onto the show for. You're also fucking right, Gareth. Those of you who haven't bought one yet, for God's sake, buy a book, turtlebirdbooks.com and Amazon.
You've weaseled 5 minutes of plugging in here. It's brilliant. Well done. So, Gord, people want to know, are you going to sneak into Windsor or Buckingham Palace? That's from Sillicide. This is very important.
My teeth are too good for being a royal. I mean, I don't look very priestish, do I? What else can I disguise myself as?
So someone says, I dress up as the queen. If you're going to do this, go for gold. So you could maybe pull off being the queen.
Dress like Freddie Mercury. I could be the best queen ever, dude. Like, I'm one of those people that like genuinely thinks like if you could choose these days it's like, we talked about identifying with external things. Like now you can choose your gender just based as like how you want, almost as a fashion-y thing. I'm not at all suggesting everyone's doing that, but I was going to say you can't choose your sexual orientation, but now it's like you can choose your t-shirt. But I would seriously probably go for being gay if I could just decide, because it like seems fabulous. It makes more sense. Fabulous. Like, so I'd make a fantastic queen. I'm like, part of me when I go out with my gay mates, I'm always like, I feel like included because they're having me here and they're so nice to me. But
Ben's face. Ben is watching this with like a tiny amount of interest. He was so interested in the previous stuff. Now he's like, oh Jesus, we're talking about whether Gord would like be gay if he could. It's ridiculous.
No, but I mean, like Gareth, let's be honest. I think Gord's touching on what most guys will think at some stage of their life. I mean, hanging out with guys is cool. It makes sense. Bills get split properly. There's good conversation. But
split properly. Is this an important part of it?
No, but I mean, it makes for a harmonious life. But bum sex is brutal, from what I understand. I mean, you would have
as
to
if only gay
really.
people are into it, Ben. You can test out how bum sex is with the consenting women if you just look
but
around.
Still, I mean, it's not your
only gays
default.
do
It's
bum
not your
sex.
defaults. I know, and some gays don't do bum
defaults.
sex, Gord. But the whole thing is, it's a brutal way to end the day, huh? And I tell you what, and that's what probably deters a lot of people.
Let's just talk off air, Ben. I'll answer some questions for you.
Just gonna say that.
You know what I've noticed though is like I've got gay friends who they seem to be generally two things, and I know these are huge stereotypes. So I'm probably going to get into trouble for them. But number one, they seem to be, I mean, the word gay, happy, right? They seem to be a lot happier,
yes,
more or less on a daily basis than all the straight people. But they also seem to be extremely mean to each other when things aren't going well. So it's like a best of, but also worst of both worlds. So I look at it with I wouldn't say the jealousy that it sounds like Gord might have for this lifestyle, but I certainly don't think that it's
envy,
all
Gareth. I'm not
think it's
gay
all
and
rainbows.
defensive about people taking
It's not
it
all
away from
rainbows
me.
and unicorns. No. Okay, well, let's say envy.
Sorry, I just had to be a durst there for a moment.
But Jesus, when gay guys break up, it's like Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. It's worse even.
Well, there's an insight there. That's something that I actually wrote a blog about years ago with my buddy Dale. We had a blog called Mojo Dojo before blogs were a thing. And it was like, I wrote a thing called Dating a Human. And the insight about it was that, like, whatever you're into, if you're a dude who dates dudes, if you're a girl who dates girls, if you're a they who dates other theys, you will say, hey, they are crazy. So like all men are dogs and pigs, or all women are nuts, or all gays are crazy because I'm gay. It's like you'll date a certain type of human and ascribe craziness to that type of human. When in actual fact, if you were to totally date one of everybody, you'd realize that humans are always full of shit in more or less the same ways. And you project it. So I only like burgers and I hate pizzas. So all burgers are fucking crazy. Like, dude, date a pizza. They're as crazy.
No, you're probably right. So somebody says here, this conversation is funny when the comments go quiet. Everyone's too busy laughing. I hope so. And then Carl says, Gord, important. Bum sex with a woman is one directional. In a gay relationship, you must give and receive. You'll need to stretch your naught. This is very important.
I'll just say, Carl, that the D doesn't have to be flesh and blood or living. You can receive bum sex, mate, from a woman. They've got, I really don't want to get into bum sex on this show. I didn't take it in this direction or take it at all, but anything's possible if you just believe, Carl. We were talking about envy and jealousy. You can live your dream. This is all a perception. These limitations are a perception. That's how
I just really want to know what Carl's credentials are, because that was a very sweeping statement around the ins and outs.
Exactly.
Given that he clearly doesn't have a full grasp of how it actually works, we're seeing the same thing of expertise from someone who probably hasn't done it. Carl, I love you.
No, unpick
not that much, but I love you.
By the way, another thing that's come up as a theory when we talked about this intruder in Windsor Castle, it's interesting that so many people said you could dress up as Prince Andrew. You just need to find like a really young like niece or whatever and take her in with you. And people go, oh, it's just Andrew. You walk around in a suit with a very, very young girl. People think it's the Queen's second eldest son.
I'm the balding that's been going on for 2 decades now is now at the point where I'm no longer going bald. I'm bald but have some hair. So I'm thinking I'm just getting it shorter and shorter and shorter until eventually I won't have any. But like if I get rid of all of it and cover my tattoos and fuck my teeth up on purpose, I might actually be able to pull this look off.
Right. So a quick comment, Gord, you don't have to worry about this, but apparently the brilliant Pravin Gordhan, and we try not to do politics on a Friday, but this is unavoidable. Pravin Gordhan, who's been one of our most useless ministers, he's been an absolute idiot from beginning to end. He's completely pulled into the communist way of thinking. And this guy says, guys, you don't have to worry about the state of disaster. I see we've already lost Gord. He's so bored with this subject. But don't worry about the state of disaster, he says. we can go all the way to stage 8 with Eskom before it completely falls apart. Did you know that? Do you know that we can go all the way to stage 8? I thought that the upper limit was like stage 5. I didn't think it went beyond.
Well, of course it can go to stage 8 because then you have power for, I think, like 4 hours a day in intermittent stages. But yeah, I mean, like that Pravin Gordon guy, he's a communist in popularity, but his share portfolio is very capitalist.
Oh, yeah, quite right. Yeah.
He does love a good share in a business that he knows nothing about, but he's been given it because he's, previously disadvantaged
and connected.
There's probably a level of load shedding where they're able to, because of some sort of tax consent or the government are very ineffective unless it's you owe them money, and then suddenly they show we can actually do stuff, we're just choosing not to. Like, we could have the get your money when you owe it to us people do the provide anything you've voted and paid for, but it's better to have them there. So they'll find a way that when the load shedding is so bad that they're able to reabsorb your charged devices into the grid so they can run a few government buildings and whichever private hospitals their kids go to. Because my whole thing is you should only, while you're in government, you and your immediate family should only be allowed to use government schools and government hospitals as long as you're in government. So, they'll take what electricity you've got for their children, who of course can't possibly be without.
This is a brilliant theory. So you reckon that it could actually invert, where Eskom is no longer providing electricity, but they're actually sucking it out of the things that you've charged.
I sent you a video on Telegram. I don't know, because I saw the only thing good about Telegram, aside from it being the only way my buddy Alan I'm on it because my buddy Alan that's the only way he'll communicate. It drives me nuts. So I get messages from my good friend Alan and then notifications about who's joined Telegram. So if you guys want an app that updates you every day as to who's joined the app, Telegram's the winner. So I see Gareth has joined Telegram. I'm out in London and I left a little video note in Yerraman Afrikaans.
So let me explain. I went on Telegram years ago. Remember when we were all told that WhatsApp was going to be evil?
Because the CIA gives such a fuck about it.
They were going to mine all of our information. So I downloaded Telegram, and then some idiot sent me this message and said, "Oh no, I don't use WhatsApp. I only use Telegram." So then I had to get back on it, but I'm going to delete it again. Gord.
I'm on it for a friend like that who's as much as I love to give him shit. He's a great guy and he's worth having Telegram. But I saw it last night while I was out in Soho, and I left you a video message. And I was like, "Jerre man, kyk hierdie plek. Hoeveel elektrisiteit het hulle? Hulle gooi dit weg in die see. They got so much electricity. They're just pumping it in the ocean and shocking the fish to get rid of it." I'm like, these dudes could donate their leftover or expired electricity each month to us. Yeah. And it would, they've got so much that they're electrifying shit just to find a place to put it. I'm like, this one square, you could power 3 South Africas and still charge an airplane.
Listen, you guys will love this story. I was talking to Anthony Mederer, who obviously does blind history with me, and he was telling me about, he loves sharks, and he's done this whole series with us on sharks and conservation. Apparently what they used to do in the 1920s, if there was a shark in a certain part of the sea and it was bothering people, and in fact, the whole story of Jaws apparently comes from a story of this one shark that ate 3 people and injured one. One of them got away, but the other 3 were eaten in a certain part of the East Coast.
Because when you lank full after 3 people, you can't actually swim fast enough to catch the 4th act. I was like that when I used to chase down Uber delivery people. You get 2 or 3, and you try to tackle the 4th. You just don't have the agility.
Too much. You don't have the space. Anyway, so what they used to do when they were trying to get rid of these sharks, they would throw a depth charge into the sea. Now, I mean, that's what you use to blow up submarines. Okay, so in the 1920s, they just didn't give a shit. Don't ask me how, but ordinary people could get a depth charge and throw it into the sea, and they would hit the bottom and just blow everything to fucking smithereens. And all the dead fish would then rise to the top, and they'd hope to find the shark that was bothering people among all these dead fish that floated to the surface.
Well, dude, because not every vague memory I have of something is now scientific fact because I think it's probably right. I do have some sort of memory. It might be a TV show. It might have been something I read, but I read that there's a way of fishing where you throw a hand grenade into like a stream, and
Dynamite.
you just see which dead. Or
Dynamite.
Is that real, or is that from like a Wile E. Coyote
Real.
cartoon? Because I always thought
Yeah,
like
people
that's
did
brutal,
it.
but it's a good idea if you're starving. Like if you've got a little brook, you're not literally going to nuke an entire rainforest to get a fish. But if you like chuck a grenade into a brook and get behind a tree for the shrapnel and just see what floats up, I mean, there might be pieces of fish and not intact fish. But I mean, to get rid of a shark while it's at home chilling with its wife or husband, and by bombing the entire neighborhood. Is this Americans doing this by any chance?
Yeah, it was
Sounds
American.
very Obama-ish. Yeah, it's a very Obama tactic.
So blow up the whole sea because you want to get one shark out. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
I'm
just,
really sick of Ben, so I'm going to carpet bomb the province he's in.
but this is it. I mean, this is the way people used to think. There was no such thing as conservation in the 1920s. People just, animals were just an inexhaustible resource. You could just blow up the whole sea and whatever floated to the top, don't worry.
Whereas now they do worse, but the media give us Johnny Depp and Amber Heard to argue about. And our way of helping the environment is posting memes about how people should do it. My favorite thing about like a fierce woman or like a true friend, is that people say like, here's this meme. This is how I wish I lived. And now I'm holding you all accountable. This is how people should do conservation. Get on it, you guys. Plastic bottle. Like it's the same. It's worse now.
We got to get to Borge. It is time for us to speak to George Mienie, who yes.
This is what I remember I was saying before about being able to choose being gay. If George and I could,
this is not how you start the segment, Gord.
George, I would hate you for being so attractive and successful if you weren't the nicest dude in the world.
Thanks, Gord. Hello, Ben.
Good to see you, bro.
Hey, George.
Here we are. It's a bunch of guys this Friday, and it's appropriate to talk about cars as well. So it's always good to see you, George, because it means that the weekend is finally upon us. What do you got for us on the agenda?
Well, first thing is, some people do odd experiments, and I don't know why. Some people, maybe they've just got too much money, but it does make us laugh.
What kind of experiments? I mean, you've shown us some of these cars people build in their garages.
Exactly.
And they turn a car into a boat, into a car. It's the weird amphibian stuff that they do. They're trying to make flying cars. Is that what you're talking about?
Exactly what I'm talking about. So you get these crews that do things for the fun of it. And this crew at a place called Garage 54, they decided to do an experiment to see what would happen if all four wheels of a car came off all at the same time.
All right. So what happened?
They rigged it to do this, or
they rigged it to do it? Yes.
Okay.
So they took this car, this old clapped out car, sent it careering down a obviously deserted part of some road somewhere. It was vacuum pressurized, so the wheels were rigged to not have nuts and bolts in the vac, so that they could make the wheels come off all at the same time. And the car came to a complete stop without any issues because all four wheels came off at the same time. So it just proved that if all four wheels of your car come off at the same time, you'll be okay. If one wheel comes off, you won't be okay.
I was about to say, do they have to all exactly at the same time come off? Because I mean, I'm not like being entirely full of shit. So you rig it so that it like releases all four at the same time. But if one kind of doesn't come off as easily as the other, so you're going to do a 100-ton somersault, and if they just hydraulically ping at the same time, the car's like, So the key so what we need, instead of ejector seats, we need, when you're getting in an accident, the release all wheels button.
Love it.
Yeah, correct. Release all wheels.
I'm pretty sure the car's going to come to a stop a lot quicker if all four wheels come off at the same time, because you've got this thing bottoming out on
This is like information that no one needs, but it's cool to have.
All right, very good.
Exactly. And then Gareth, this was a funny story. There was this couple, and this story surfaced on Reddit, which is just a funny story. It's called The Cab and the Grandma. So this person writes, my husband and I were dressed ready to go out for a lovely evening for dinner. And having a break-in in the past, they put a nightlight on with an answering machine, and they decided to put they had a cat in the backyard.
Okay.
So when the cab driver arrived, they walked out the front door, and their little tabby cat ran in between their legs into the house again, and the cat wanted to go and chase the caged bird that they had. So the taxi driver was waiting, and so the husband went and chased the cat, and the wife went down to the cab driver and explained that the husband will be back momentarily, but just bidding good night to her mother.
This is a terrible story so far. I mean, I'm not excited by it. Anybody?
Yeah, I'm expecting a punchline, and I'm like, is this going to be tragically horrific with a dead cat and a bereaved person? Let's hear the rest, George.
Hear the rest. Wait. Just bide your time. So anyway, so say goodbye to her mother. The husband comes back, done and dusted, gets into the cab and says, honey, sorry it took so long, but the stupid bitch was hiding under the bed. I had to poke her ass with a coat hanger to get her to come out. She tried to take off, so I grabbed her by the neck. I then wrapped a blanket around her because she wanted to scratch me, and it worked. I hauled her fat ass down the stairs and threw her in the backyard. She better not shit in the vegetable garden. There was silence in the taxi.
And you're talking about the cat and not the old lady, because someone just said that last. I'm like, no, okay, it's pretty straightforward story.
I like that. All right. No, you redeemed yourself completely.
Although it does sound like an effective way to get rid of like an obstinate old person, because old people get to a point, and I'm not saying old people should be mistreated. They need to be cared for. So when they're like not quite all there, sometimes they want to go and like, fist fight the shower or punch through the glass wall, or you have to be like, come on, no, it's all right. So they got to be ways where they start resisting things they need. Like if you've got to get your very old relative to like the doctor for something important, and they're fighting and scratching because they're imagining like they're back in World War II now, you might do well to wrap them in a blanket, pick them up. Like, I'm not suggesting we do this, but it is feasible that you might have been talking about a real old person.
Just stop right there, because Gord, what you're talking about is a gross human rights violation. But okay.
No, I know that. That's why I'm saying I could visualize George talking about this as if it's real. It would just be a very, very inhumane way to deal with your elderly dependent.
Exactly.
Or any insights on when the Tesla Roadster SpaceX model will be released, says Congo Chris.
The Tesla Roadster SpaceX model? No, not to my knowledge. I know a bit, but I don't know that.
All right.
So
what is that?
Coming off. Sorry, this all four wheels coming off thing is a great analogy for our times. Good to know we're going to be okay.
Yeah, we're fine as long as all the wheels come off and quickly. If they come off slowly, it's a problem.
All right.
What is a Tesla? What is a SpaceX model Tesla? What's it supposed to be? It sounds awesome. Does it fly, or is it just branded to be cooler than the others?
Well, it's the first I hear of a SpaceX model Tesla, so I'm going to go do some research after this.
All right. Yeah, George always does, and then he messages me like later on in the show. He's like, "Oh, here's what it is," and then we throw it on the next week. So stand by. We'll have more for you next week. All right, George. But what else have you got?
So I didn't know that this animal existed called a javelina, which is a pig, I think.
I was about to say that's a pig, bro.
Exactly. So this javelina in Arizona, the boot of the Subaru was left open.
I've actually dated that exact one, but please continue. His name starts with a D, but I won't give any more away.
This Subaru's boot was left open, and this javelina decided that it was going to chase a packet of Cheetos. Now, Cheetos is a packet of chips in America. A packet of Cheetos. So it jumped into the car, and somehow the boot closed, and this javelina was stuck in the car. So in an attempt to get out of the car, the thing started panicking. Ripped half the dashboard apart, but in the process, knocked the car into neutral. Car ran down the road a couple of blocks, knocked into something, and came to a stop. But apparently this guy's car was trashed inside from this pig.
So basically the pig essentially drove the car. One of Parallel Parking says it's pronounced javelina, but Cool. Like I was imagining that this thing got in the boot and then closed the boot somehow, and then some ordinary person was driving home with their groceries, and then they went to get the groceries out the boot and open it, and a furry javelina jumps out, angry and confused. Like I put my bags in, I go do something, I can drive home, and I open, and a wild angry pig, like the one I used to date, jumps out and attacks your face. So it could have been worse. Like the pig accidentally putting the car in neutral is bad, but it could be a lot worse having a pig accidentally in your car.
Exactly.
I'm just glad I know what I'm just glad I know what a javelina is, and I know how to pronounce it too. You see, we wouldn't learn these things if we didn't do these Fridays.
Exactly. And then last week, I don't know if you recall, Gareth, but Sven, I don't know if Sven is listening. He mentioned the C40 Volvo.
Yes, I remember that. And you had some additional information to give.
Yes, so the C40 Volvo does in fact exist in other countries in the world, but it does not exist in South Africa. Whether it's going to come here or not remains to be seen. But I thought I'd mention that Sven was in fact right. The C40 Volvo it does exist. It just doesn't exist in South Africa.
First time you said that, I was like, "What is a C40 Evolve O?" Like, is that an ordinary O who evolves in a C40? Like, the C40 evolved. Oh, you mean a car. Got you. So that's how ignorant about cars I am.
Let's wrap up this morning's fun. And it's been really cool to have Ben, Gord, and George in one show. So let's just wrap up this morning's fun by having a quick round-the-room quiz. Everybody, you get to choose somewhere on the scale what kind of a parent you think you are. Using the scale provided, how good are you at keeping your children at home? At the far end of 0, we have the McCanns, whose daughter Madeline McCann went missing, and they just never bothered to look for her after that. And then you've got, on the other side, someone who kept their children at home and really didn't allow them to leave at all, Joseph Fritzl. So I'd think the healthiest position is probably about a 5, right? Is that your estimation there too, gentlemen?
As I officially distance myself from this line of humor, I have no children and therefore I'm not on the scale. So, well, none that I'm aware of except for the one I'm fleeing from. But again, we don't know if it's mine or if she's actually even pregnant. But other than that one, I can't comment on this. So you guys talk about this and get cancelled.
Where are you on the scale here, Ben?
I would want to go back to just Gord's globetrotting / so George, you went on the show earlier, obviously, but Gord, essentially what we believe, and this is all speculation currently, like most good things in the show.
Oh, it's all speculation, no matter what she told you.
Yeah, so Gord has left lovely sea points and lovely apartment where he rollerblades and boxes shirtless to now live in like small cubicles for the next 4 months in various European cities. I think he's got someone up the duff and he's on the run. Because I mean, he's in 4 months he's staying in 5 different places, of which there were air quotes where he said like, I'm going to Dublin, Stuttgart. Yeah. I mean, he was literally just making up names, but he's on the run. Gordon, I wish you all the best, but
I'm in Blackberry, man. You got me.
I know. I've always believed you'd be a good dad, though, Gord.
I think a bank robbery is going to surface.
I mean, look, if any of them ever do track me down, I will try to be a good dad, Ben.
Of course you will be. I think you're ready. I mean, you're not like a Joseph Fritz already, but I think you're ready.
But he's just by definition, he's a deadbeat dad if he's trying to avoid responsibility. So, Gord, not a great example for a Friday morning. Have an excellent day, gentlemen. It's great to have you all on. And George, thank you for telling us about javelinas. I mean, who would have known?
Just watch out for javelinas in the boot, dudes. If you feel a rattly in the boot, open it sort of sideways so that it leaps out and not at. You know what I mean? Because javelinas are a real problem.
I'm going to ask if I can get javelina bacon this weekend somewhere. I reckon that's a niche. That will be delightful.
Right. Very good.
Hey, thanks for having us, dude. So good to see you.